December 13th, 1942. I sleep badly. When Grommel tries to wake me from my watch, I'm already awake. I've been lying here for hours, staring at the bunker ceiling, unable to shake this feeling in my gut. It's not fear exactly. I'm past the point of simple fear. We've been under fire for 2 months now. Fear has become background noise, like the distant thunder of artillery, or the wind howling across the steppe. This is something different, something deeper. A gnawing sensation in my stomach, like an anthill of insects crawling around inside me. The cold outside is good for me. At least it's real, tangible. Not this nameless dread that sits in my chest like a stone. I meet Warius, who is on patrol in our sector. His tall frame is hunched against the wind, rifle slung over his shoulder. He tells me that the rumor is circulating that General Oberst Hoth, with his tanks, is on his way to break open the pocket around Stalingrad. Is it true, or is it, as usual, just gossip? Perhaps it really is the great salvation that all those who are surrounded are so fervently hoping for. 300,000 men, trapped in that hell, the entire 6th Army, sealed in by ice and Russian steel. But we would also do something for us here in our battered hedgehog position. Questions, always questions, and no answers, never any answers. The wind suddenly carries sounds to us of a sort we've not heard before. They're a bit like trumpet blasts, repeated at various distances. Strange, metallic sounds that echo across the frozen landscape. Later we hear the noise of powerful engines approaching through the night, from the direction of Shear Station. The trumpet sounds are new, and we can't make head nor tail of them. Some kind of signal, a call to assembly? When I meet up with Meinhard, he says that he's noticed searchlights being turned on over there now, and that looks like he is assembling troops over there, he says to himself, and then adds, Ivan definitely is up to something. If we only knew what. The air around us becomes electric. You can feel it, a tension that makes your skin prickle, even through layers of frozen clothing. The entire sector is now awake. Soldiers are emerging from the trenches, and are walking nervously back and forth. Everyone is looking towards the front, but it's still too dark to make anything out. When I go to wake Weichert at 5 o'clock, he's already standing in front of the bunker, gazing towards Shear. The nervous feeling in my stomach is now stronger. I remember that this same feeling of unease would also come to me at home, most often when I was about to start an important sports event. Here, however, it is much stronger. It's a concentrated excitement, brought about by the knowledge that something threatening is approaching, and we don't know what it is. A stifling situation, but we have to wait. Wait until the gray of the morning. Wait to see what death looks like when it comes for us this time. Little Grommel is the only one left in the bunker. I go inside to warm up my drink over the last bit of heat left in the oven. The drink is a leftover from the supply container dropped earlier. Grommel is sleeping, but his breathing is irregular. He's lying with his face towards the wall, and every so often his body gives a twitch. Nightmares. We all have them. Wilke is still outside on guard duty. Otto Wilke, who's been with us since the beginning. I think about him for a moment as I wait for my drink to warm. Always had a deck of cards in his pocket. Always ready with a joke, even when there was nothing to joke about. He'd play cards with anyone, anywhere. On the train to the front, in the trenches between bombardments, in the bunker at night when we couldn't sleep. I remember him telling me about home once, about his father's bakery in some small town, whose name I've forgotten. How he used to deliver bread on his bicycle before dawn, when the streets were empty and quiet. How he planned to take over the bakery after the war, get married, have kids, live a normal life. That was back in October, when we still thought things like that. When we still believed there would be an after. Now it's December, and we don't think about after anymore. We think about tonight, tomorrow, next hour. That's as far as planning goes these days. Wilke never complains. Some men grumble constantly about the cold, the food, the officers, the war itself. Not Wilke. He just shuffles his cards and smiles that crooked smile, and makes some joke that isn't really funny but makes you laugh anyway, because you need to laugh about something. Just as I'm about to pour my hot drink from my mess kit into my canteen cup, Grommel suddenly leaps up with a yell and rushes, still half asleep, to the bunker entrance. I drop my cup in astonishment, and grab him by the sleeve. He flails his arms wildly and yells, Swina, Swina, I'm coming. Help him, help him. I grab him around his midriff and hold his arms tight. And I see that he is once again calm. His eyes focus, recognition returning. Weikert stands beside us and asks in a quiet voice, "What was the matter, Squirt? Did you have a bad dream? You know that Swina is with Meinhard in his bunker." Then we go out into the frosty morning air. In the east a narrow strip of light is announcing the dawn of a new day. Grommel is still a bit groggy, and is searching for words to explain his dream, but what he says is lost in the infernal racket which is going on. It comes at us with such a force that there must be 1,000 devils in the air, and the earth around us is being consumed like a boiling hell. Before we can rush back into the bunker, Wilke, who is standing guard outside, comes dashing over and falls to the ground right in front of us. We look at each other with disturbed white faces. Nobody says a word, but fear is obvious in every wrinkle of our skin. Our eyes gleam feverishly. Hell is fuming. Fire and glowing steel fall from the sky all around us. If we didn't know that the devastating shellfire was coming from the Soviets, we could be forgiven for thinking that here, on December 13th, the end of the world had begun. I can't stand it in the bunker anymore. I want to see this hell in which we will all perish. When I raise my head just a little above the edge of the bunker, I am paralyzed with fear. The surface of the ground is dancing all the way up to the hillock in a hellish turmoil. Not a single square foot seems to be still. Fountains of earth, mixed with cold snow and glowing splinters of metal churn over the area, being peppered with shell fragments. Nobody, but nobody, could take even a couple of steps without being caught up in this cauldron. The bursting, thunderous noise and the screaming in the air are so loud that we can no longer make ourselves heard. We try to yell at each other, but the words are swallowed by the explosions. On top of our bunker, there are already a number of shallow craters caused by mortar fire, Stalin organs, and light infantry weapons. But so far, the roof, which we only reinforced 2 days ago, has held up. The hellish inferno ebbs somewhat after about half an hour, but it seems to us like an eternity. When you're crouched in a hole waiting to die, time loses all meaning. Each second stretches into hours. The communication trench and our position have been almost filled with debris and snow and shattered earth. It's a wonder we're still alive. What does the enemy have in mind now? We know that this crazy shelling can only be preparatory to an attack, but the enemy is still hidden by the morning mist. The air is thick with smoke and dust, and the acrid smell of explosives. Somebody calls out my name. Then we see Warius. He comes rushing with long strides between the mortar explosions, and falls almost to his knees in front of us. He's so out of breath that he can't speak straight away. His dirty face is sweaty and caked, but where we can see his skin he is as white as a sheet. Then he shrieks. Doring's bunker has been hit again. Meinhard, Swina and the rest have been killed. The chap on the outside is only slightly wounded, and I have already bandaged him up, but Seidel and 2 others have also been hit. I need more bandages so I can attend to them. The words hit me like a physical blow. Meinhard, Swina, gone, just like that. A direct hit, and they're erased from existence. Weikert presses 2 packs of bandages into Warius's hand, and he dashes back, zigzagging to avoid the incoming mortar rounds. The deaths of Meinhard and Swina hit us heavily. My tears are caused not only by the acrid powder fumes. Meinhard, who always had a pipe in his mouth, and a calm word when things got bad. Swina, who was deaf but never complained, who always had that gentle smile. Now they're just meat in a collapsed bunker. Fright increasingly grips me. My throat is parched, and I feel as if I'm being strangled. I follow Warius with my eyes, and see that he jumps into the trench unharmed. And then I hear Wilke yell hysterically. Tanks are coming. In great masses, swarms of them. His last words are drowned out by the noise of the explosions from the shells the tanks are firing at us. Then I see them too. First, it's like a wall of fire advancing on us. Then a horde of brown beetles slowly approaches across the white steppe. A tank attack. Weikert hurriedly counts 50, but there must be more. So this is what the Soviets have prepared. A colossal tank attack against our desolate, poorly equipped outpost here, which has been holding him back, and has inflicted far too many losses on him for far too long. Belching a threatening ripple of fire, the T-34S advanced parallel with the railway line towards the village. Within the next quarter of an hour they will have reached it and will be able to roll up or cut off our position from the rear. We know that our time here has run out, and that the time of terror without end, the terrible end, has come. The question is there still a chance for us to escape this fate? 50 tanks. Maybe more. How do you fight 50 tanks when you have no anti-tank weapons? When your 88mm gun has been destroyed? When all you have is rifles and machine guns that bounce off armor like rain? You don't fight, you run. Or you die. We are standing in the protection of the bunker, and are staring with sweaty faces now at the oncoming tanks, now at the fiery explosions on the churned-up field, up towards the safety of the hillock. A number of men near the hillock are now jumping out of their trenches and running up towards its protection. They want to reach the village before the tanks do, so that they can then escape over the frozen River Don. The sappers have also left their positions and are running towards the hillock. More and more men do likewise. They are running through a rain of shellfire and splinters. The further they have to run, the less chance they have of making it alive. The ground in between is littered with weapons, coats, equipment, and other items, discarded so that the men can run faster. Many of them are struck down and remain lying on the ground. Others manage to get up again and run on, bleeding. What should we do? Grommel and Wilkie run like caged animals into and out of the bunker. Weikert ducks down beside me ready to run, but he is still not decided. He points at two figures jumping out of the trench and now bounding through the deadly fire towards safety. I recognize the tall Warius and also Seidel, who has a bandage around his head. Seidel falls, but springs up again and carries on. Loke excitedly indicates to us that the first tanks have already reached the village. What should we do? Rush after the pair of them. We are furthest from the hillock, and if we are lucky enough to reach it, what awaits us behind it? Obviously, we can't stay here in the bunker. That means death or imprisonment. Then, rather death. To be taken prisoner by the Soviets. That I would never live through. I've heard the stories. The forced marches, the camps in Siberia, the slow death by starvation and cold and disease. Better to die here, quickly, with a bullet, than slowly in some frozen hell. They have all gone, yells Wilkie. Surprised and agitated. No, not all of them yet. There are still some in that position there, replies Weikert. But Wilke has already taken off his webbing and is running into the seething cauldron. I can see him throwing away his heavy overcoat as he runs along. Then I lift Weikert and Grommel up over the edge of the trench. They have already stripped off all unnecessary baggage and are running for their lives. Now it's my turn. Am I the last one? No. I can still see a couple of men waiting. What for? There are but two possibilities: run or stay. It calls for just as much daring to stay in the bunker and wait for the Soviets as it does to run through the explosions. What a perfect soldier I am. Instead of freeing myself of all extraneous weight, I want to take along my belt and all my equipment. As if any of that matters now. As if bullets care whether you're properly dressed. As I run, I notice very quickly that I am not getting away fast enough. So as I run, I tear off my overcoat and loosen my belt. The whole lot falls to the ground, and I keep only my 8 pistol in my hand. I dash over the shell craters and stumble over the items which the fleeing soldiers have discarded. All around me grenades and shells are bursting. It is a run for life or death. Many have not made it to the hillock. They are lying silently or moaning on the ground. Others are calling for help. How can I help them? I could be lying there beside them any moment. The fear of death or a serious injury blanks out every other thought, and I see only the chance of saving my own skin. That's what war reduces you to. Pure animal survival instinct. No heroism, no duty, just run, run, and don't look back. As I reach the hillock and disappear behind it, coughing and drenched in sweat, I have long since lost sight of my friends. I stumble over a dead body and fall in the snow, which here is still white and almost virgin. The body I have just stumbled over is that of Unteroffizier Schwarz, lying in a pool of blood from several wounds. Judging from the color in his face, he can only recently have died. His eyes are still open, staring at nothing. Then I see a new danger in front of me. Several T-34s have turned in front of the village and are now blocking the path of the escaping soldiers. They are driving several men before them, and the latter are running for their lives, trying to escape by zigzagging like rabbits. But the tanks are firing with their machine guns. Some of the men fall and are ground up by the tank tracks. See it happening. See the men disappear under the treads. See the snow turn red where they were. I have to get through. It hammers away in my head. I have to stay in the blind spot of the tank. In spite of this, The bullets spray around my head, and then I sense a hit against the left side of my chest. Am I wounded? I don't feel anything which slows me down or weakens me, so I continue in my headlong rush. No time to check, no time to think, just run. Suddenly Wilkie is beside me. He buckles at the knees and coughs. Shit, I can't go on. It's murderous. I grab him by the arm and pull him up, but after a couple of paces his legs give out again. Has he been hit? Horrified, I see a T-34 tank bearing down on us. With my last ounce of strength, I jump aside, but Wilke can no longer get up. The tank track is already over his body, and his terrified yell is swallowed up by the gunfire of the T-34. I see it happen. See Wilke disappear under 30 tons of steel. 1 second he's there, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a scream. The next second he's gone. Just gone. The tank never even slows down. It never noticed the human being it just ran over. Otto Wilke. The card player. The joker who always had a deck of cards in his pocket, who could make you laugh even when there was nothing to laugh about. Crushed like an insect under a boot. The tank is now firing at individual soldiers. Nothing restrains me anymore. I run and run until my lungs wheeze like a pair of old bellows. Finally, I reach the railings of the village and vault over them. I fall down on some hard ground on the other side. For a moment, I remain lying there. The sweat is running down my forehead into my eyes. When I wipe my forehead with the back of my hand, it is bloody, but it is only a small graze from falling on the stone. Then I notice a ruined hut. That would give me some cover. I must get over there. And with a couple of strides, I make it. The broken-down door lies on the floor. Too late do I discover that lurking behind the remains of a wall is a T-34, its turret hatch open. A thunderous shot almost bursts my eardrums. Suddenly, a Soviet soldier jumps over the remains of the wall into the house and becomes glued to the spot. We are both surprised and stare at each other. He is unarmed, and I am holding my A pistol in my hand, aimed at him. The Russian is young, just like me, and is staring with concern at my pistol. If he attacks me, I will shoot. But he doesn't move. He just stands there and lets his hands fall to his sides. We look at each other for what feels like an eternity, but is probably only a few seconds. Two young men who should be at university, or working in factories, or farming their father's land, not trying to kill each other in a frozen wasteland. I could shoot him. Should shoot him. He's the enemy. But I don't. I can't. I've seen enough death today. Slowly I move backwards, until my back hits a beam. Then I turn and run away to the protection of some bushes close to the riverbank. There I meet up with a group of soldiers, who, like me, are completely exhausted, and who, after a short pause to catch their breath, throw themselves onto the snow-covered ice of the dawn. Under the terrifying machine gun and heavy fire from the many tanks which have assembled at the riverbank, they are trying to make it across the river to the safety of the other side. The dawn, the frozen dawn, our only escape route. Between us and safety is 800 meters of ice, and on that ice we're exposed, completely exposed, like targets in a shooting gallery. I join the ranks of all the other German soldiers, who in a state of sheer panic are now engaged in a life-or-death struggle. In order to avoid falling into the hands of a merciless enemy, they choose to take the lesser risk of running over the deadly ice, which minutes earlier stretched away peacefully. I also clutch at this straw of hope and race off. The ice is too thin for the tanks, which therefore line themselves up on the high ground along the banks and fire at us, as if at a shooting range. The shells explode without let-up. Men are falling onto the snow left and right. The white covering is now coloring itself blood red. The dead are lying in heaps, and the wounded are groaning and calling for help. In many places the ice is cracked open from the shell fire, and fountains of water are erupting high into the air. Many of the bodies lying on the snow disappear in the gurgling water. As the ice breaks up, I run, stumbling over dead and wounded, hearing only explosions and aware that the snow is becoming stained red with blood. A shell lands 20 meters to my right. The blast wave knocks me sideways, but I keep my feet. A man beside me isn't so lucky. The explosion catches him full on, and he simply comes apart. No time to think about it, no time to process it. Just run. The river seems endless. Every step feels like it takes an hour. My lungs are burning, my legs are screaming, but I can't stop. To stop is to die. So I run, and I run, and I run. Then finally, I reached the safety of the other bank. There aren't many of us who can manage to reach the far river bank and seek the protection of the birch forest there. But even here we are not safe. The tank shells are exploding in the treetops, and splinters and branches are constantly raining down. Many who thought they were safe here have been injured. I collapse in the snow, gasping for air. My chest feels like it's going to explode. My heart is hammering so hard, I think it might burst through my ribs. Around me, other survivors are doing the same. Some are crying, some are laughing hysterically, some just stare at nothing, their minds broken by what they've just experienced. There are lots of bunkers in the forest. As we are running past one, an Unteroffizier waves us in. I stumble through the entrance and need some minutes before I can breathe normally again and talk. I send a thank you prayer to heaven, grateful that I've been able to survive the death run across the Don. The bunkers are in surprisingly good condition, clean, and all professionally constructed with birch trunks of the same length. They must have been built to last, but who knows how long they've been standing empty. One soldier reckons that they were occupied by an artillery unit at one time. He has seen the prepared artillery positions on the banks of the Don. I should think it's possible to hold out here for some time. But even as I think it, I know it's a lie. The Russians will come. They always come. And we have almost no weapons, almost no ammunition, almost no hope. The Unteroffizier offers me a cigarette. When I reach into my left breast pocket to take out my lighter, my fingers grip a piece of iron, deformed by a bullet or a splinter. The material is broken, and my fingers run through it. I can smell the gas which has leaked out in my uniform. Now I remember the hit I felt in the left side of my chest as I reached the hillock. The solid lighter that Stabsgefreiter Grauer gave me in Stalingrad probably saved my life. The bullet or splinter hit the lighter instead of my heart. A few centimeters to the right, and I'd be lying dead on that field. I wonder what became of Grauer and the others. But this is not the time to reminisce. We have to go on. One soldier among the last to make it through the terrible ordeal on the Don splutters. That enemy infantry with mortar units are coming over the ice and will soon be here. We can't hold them up. We have no weapons. The Unteroffizier hasn't even got his submachine gun, and I am the only one who still has a pistol. We follow the Unteroffizier, who runs ahead of us through the forest underbrush. Terror remains deep in the bones of us all. Overhead we can hear the mortar rounds exploding in the treetops, raining splinters down upon us. Our helmets would have come in handy now, but we threw them away because they hindered us during our headlong rush to get away. At the edge of the forest, we emerge onto the snow-covered steppe. An icy wind drives the powdery snow into small mounds, which then form into drifts. My body is slowly recovering. The sweat on my skin is slowly drying up, and now I begin to freeze. The same is happening to the others. The collars are pulled up, and those who still have caps are pulling the flaps down over their ears. We're all soaked with sweat, and now that sweat is freezing on our bodies. In this cold, that can kill you as surely as a bullet, we seek cover from the icy wind in a Rachel, where we find another group of exhausted soldiers who belong to our unit. They have dug themselves holes in the snow to protect themselves from the icy wind. In one of these holes, to my great delight, I come across my friends Warius and Grommel. They both made it safely over the Don, but now they are really freezing. Warius does not even have a cap on his head, while Grommel is sitting in the snow hole shivering. "You made it," Warius says, and his voice cracks with emotion. "Thank God you made it. Wilke didn't," I say. The words come out flat and motionless. "Thank God him." Warius closes his eyes. Grommel makes a sound like a wounded animal. Another friend gone, another name added to the list of the dead. We sit there in silence for a long moment. What is there to say? We're alive, and Wilke isn't. That's all there is to it. No words can change that. No tears can bring him back. "How?" Warius finally asks. "We were running. He couldn't keep going. Legs gave out. Tank came and—" I trail off. No need to finish. We all know what tanks do to human bodies. Was it quick? Grommel asks. "Yeah," I lie. He didn't feel anything. But I remember the scream, the terror in his eyes, the way he looked at me in that last second before the tracks reached him, begging me to help him, knowing I couldn't, knowing he was already dead. Grommel starts crying, quiet tears that freeze on his cheeks almost immediately. Warius puts an arm around him. "We're not supposed to do this. Soldiers don't cry. Soldiers are tough. but we're past caring about what we're supposed to be. Meinhard too, Warrior says. And Swina. Direct hit on their bunker. Doring said it was instant. They didn't know what happened. I nod. More names. More friends. The list keeps growing. How many have we lost now? 10? 20? I've lost count. We all have. Seidel made it, Warriors continues. Headwood, but he'll live. Saw him get across the dawn. Don't know where he is now. 3 of us left. Out of how many? Our unit was 16 men when we boarded that train in October. 16 young soldiers, scared but excited, heading to the front to fight for Führer and fatherland. Now we're 3. 3 frozen, terrified survivors huddled in a hole in the snow, wondering if we'll see tomorrow. The arithmetic of attrition. That's what this is. The Eastern Front doesn't kill you in one dramatic battle. It grinds you down slowly. Day by day, man by man, until there's no one left. Think the ones in Stalingrad have it worse? Grommel asks suddenly. We don't answer. What can we say? We're cold and hungry and scared, but at least we can move. At least we can run. The 300,000 men sealed in Stalingrad can't even do that. They're trapped, waiting, knowing what's coming and unable to do anything about it. At least we got out, Warriors says quietly. At least we're not waiting in some frozen ruin for the end. But is that better? We got out? Yes, we ran. We abandoned our positions, left our dead, saved ourselves. And now we have to live with that. Have to carry the guilt of surviving while better men died. Cold can be deadly, particularly when the body is emaciated like ours, and there is not a house nor a barn to be seen, nowhere to crawl for some warmth. So we must go on until we can find some of our own men. But where are they? Have they gone so far south that we won't be able to find them? Walking and pressing against the wind are very tiresome, although the exercise does keep the bones moving. Some of the wounded soldiers can't make it any further. We rest in the next Rachel and dig holes in the snow. But to stay there too long will give us frostbite, so I force myself to get out and run up and down from time to time, so that the stiffness in my body loosens. December 14th. In the early hours of the morning, we are driven from the Rachel by heavy fire. The Soviets have noticed us and have trained their mortars on us. We run like frightened chickens. The biting wind whips cold snowflakes into our hot faces, immediately converting the snow into small streams of water which freeze solid into small clumps hanging from the stubble on our unshaven faces. When we regroup, we hear fire being exchanged to the right. Then German soldiers suddenly appear running towards us out of the mass of whirling snow, calling out that the Russians are right behind them. We join them and run along together. Behind us a Russian machine gun is rattling away and rifle shots snap. One man turns around and yells like crazy. He holds his rifle in front of him and blazes away at the enemy, but after a few paces he falls, hit to the snow. One more has lost the battle. We race on. The shooting behind us increases. Amongst the firing we hear the Soviets in their forward charge, yelling. Their hurrahs are right behind us and make us run even faster. Suddenly, 3 tanks appear in front of us. German assault guns. They wait until we have passed them, then open fire. The cries and the firing behind us are silenced. The assault guns move slowly forward and fire at maximum rate. Then we suddenly find ourselves in the middle of a combat unit, moving forward with the tanks in a counterattack to throw the enemy back. But for how long? How long before they're overrun too? Following the counterattack, we join up with this combat force and return with them to their jump-off point. The lieutenant in charge decides to integrate our unit. About 30 men into his one. The men are lying in the protection of a kolkhoz and some farm buildings. Even though we get something to eat after going without for 2 days, I still feel totally miserable. Or is this cowardice? After all, what can you expect from a soldier who has just passed through the scorching heat of hell and looks as though he has succumbed to the miseries there, like virtually all his friends and comrades have? Should he accept their deaths simply as the soldier's fate, without question, and keep on fighting? Damn it. I would do it if we were launching an attack and had some chance of winning. But here we are, running scared. Is it cowardice when you no longer have anything in your hands with which you can defend yourself? This rabble, the one with which we 3 have ended up, has done nothing, God knows, to improve our will to fight. They're stragglers, but their combat morale is so low that we are forever having to put up with them going on about how best they can get the hell out of it. We're told how the leaders have had to use their guns to keep the men obedient. They'd bolted once, before the enemy was even seen. Some even shot themselves in their arms or legs. They would hold a loaf of bread in front of the muzzle to make sure there would be no powder burns or singe marks. Those found out will be court-martialed and can expect to be executed. An Obergefreiter will be court-martialed because he is supposed to have deliberately allowed both his feet to get frozen. Before they brought him to the medics, he told us that following a Russian attack he had saved himself by playing dead. In order to avoid being detected by the enemy, he had spent the entire night in a snowdrift. When another combat unit freed him the next morning during a counterattack, his feet were 2 blocks of ice. It was his tough luck that no one in this combat unit knew him. So instead of sympathy, he gets suspicion. Instead of medical care, a court-martial. That's what we've become. We are given a carbine and ammunition from our new unit. In addition, I'm able to get hold of a second-hand and originally white camouflage suit, with a quilted jacket and trousers. There are no more helmets. The few houses are all full up. Our squad has led to a shed, which has gaps between each vertical plank in the wall so large that the wind blows the ice-cold snowflakes through. We cover them as best we can with ground sheets. There is only wet straw to sleep on, but even this is better than camping outside in the icy steppe. The next morning we receive a hot liquid, which is passed off as coffee, but at least it warms our insides. That night I can't sleep. I lie there on the wet straw, shivering, thinking about Wilka, about Meinhard, about Swina, about Kurat, and all the others. So many dead, so many friends gone. And for what? What did they die for? To hold a position for a few more days before we had to abandon it anyway? To buy time for an army that's already sealed in Stalingrad, doomed to freeze and starve? I close my eyes, but all I see is Wilkie's face in that last moment. The terror, the realization, the way he looked at me, like I could save him, but I couldn't. I jumped aside and he died and I lived. That's the math of war. Cold, simple, unfair. The worst part isn't the dying. It's the living. It's lying here, in this shed with frozen straw, poking through my clothes, listening to men snore and cough and cry out in their sleep, knowing that I'm only here because other men died, because Wilkie's legs gave out instead of mine, because that shell hit Meinhard's bunker instead of mine, because I was lucky. Luck. That's all it is. Not skill, or courage, or divine providence. Just dumb luck. The random chance that put me here, and them in the ground. And tomorrow, the luck might run out, and I'll be the one lying in the snow, while someone else shivers, in a shed, wondering why they survived. 300,000 men, in Stalingrad, the entire Sixth Army, sealed in by ice and steel and Russian determination, waiting for a relief column that will never come. General Oberst is trying this, fighting his way toward the pocket, but he won't make it. We all know he won't make it. I've heard the rumors, the radio messages from inside the pocket, requests for supplies, ammunition, food, medicine, all denied or impossible to deliver. The Luftwaffe was supposed to supply them by air, but the transport planes can't carry enough, can't land in the snow and ice, get shot down by Russian fighters, so they wait. And they starve, and they freeze, and they die, 300,000 of them. More men than I can comprehend. An entire army. And we're out here free, while they're sealed in that frozen tomb. And here we are, the lucky ones. The ones who escaped. While our comrades in Stalingrad wait to die, we ran. We abandoned our positions. We left our dead behind. We saved ourselves. Is that cowardice? Or is that survival? I don't know anything anymore, except that I'm cold and tired, and I want to go home. Somewhere in the shed, a man is crying. Soft choked sobs. He's trying to muffle. Nobody says anything. We all pretend not to hear. We've all cried. We'll all cry again. There's no shame in it anymore. Just another thing you do to survive. I think about Wilkie's father's bakery, about how someone will have to tell him his son is dead, that Otto won't be coming home to take over the business, won't be getting married, won't be having kids, won't be delivering bread on his bicycle through empty morning streets. They'll send a telegram. Regret to inform you. Died bravely. Service to the fatherland. Meaningless words that don't explain anything. Don't describe the terror or the pain or the waste. Just cold official phrases that let them check a box and move on to the next name on the list. And Wilkie's father will hang up his apron and close the bakery for the day, and sit in his kitchen and try to understand how his son could be gone. Try to imagine what happened, but he'll never know. He'll never know about the 50 tanks, or the run across the Don, or the moment when Otto's legs gave out, and the T-34 came, and I jumped aside and let my friend die. That's my gift to carry. That memory. That moment of decision when I chose my life over his. Not consciously, not deliberately, just instinct. Survival. The animal part of the brain that says, save yourself. And I did, and he died, and I'll carry that forever. December 15th. My spirits have hit rock bottom. We learn that a group of soldiers has actually disappeared, with a truck, and we are now left with 3 assault guns and 2 trucks. It is said that the men who left belonged to a penal company before they came here. How rumors fly. We march off, always forward, and somewhere in the direction of the front. The snow is falling more heavily, and soon we can only see a white surface in front of us, interrupted only by the occasional bush. Where are the positions supposed to be? If they do exist, they must have been covered by the snow. The houses behind us have long since disappeared behind the curtains of snow, and the Feldwebel seems to be ill at ease in this winter wasteland. He decides to halt in front of a wide Rachel. Suddenly, coming from somewhere or other, rifle shots can be heard. Out of the whirling snow, several figures appear and run with us into the Rachel. They are German soldiers fleeing from the enemy. They tell us that they've been lost in the snowy waste since yesterday, and only by good fortune have been able to get away from the Soviets, who seem to be everywhere. They belong to a combat group that was in position on the frozen River Cheer, and which yesterday was overrun by a pack of T-34 tanks with mounted infantry. The survivors had bolted and are now wandering around somewhere in the steppe. One soldier was shot during the last exchange of fire. He could not run any further as he had fallen asleep last night, and both his legs had frozen. The Soviets in front of us were working on getting their 4 mortars ready to fire. We're surrounded, or we might as well be. Everywhere we go, there are Russians. The front line has collapsed. There is no front line anymore. Just scattered groups of Germans, running, hiding, trying to survive. And in Stalingrad, 300,000 men wait to die. While we run, they wait. While we abandon positions, they hold theirs. Because they have no choice. Because they're sealed in. Because someone decided they were expendable. I think about that, as we huddle, in the Rachel, waiting for orders that never come. 300,000 men, more than I can comprehend, more than I can imagine. All of them doomed, all of them waiting for a relief that will never arrive. And we're the lucky ones. We got out. We ran across the frozen Don while shells exploded around us and tanks hunted us like animals. We left our friends behind, crushed under tank treads, or frozen in bunkers, or bleeding out in the snow. Wilka, Meinhard, Swina, Kurat, Nalzahn, Schwartz, and dozens more whose names I never knew or have already forgotten. All dead, all gone. While I'm still here, shivering in a hole in the snow, waiting for my turn. Is this survival, or is this just a slower death? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. The Feldwebel is undecided. He sends a runner back to request that the 3 assault guns be moved up. As soon as they get here, we'll attack the mortar position. We wait, and because of the cold we dig ourselves into the snow. For a while we are warm, because of the recent movement, but as the wind increases it whistles through our clothing to our very bones, causing them to tremble. Warius wraps his hands intermittently on his calves, arms and shoulders. The winter coat with which he was issued is much too short, and his legs are stuck into a couple of slit-open felt boots that were removed from a dead soldier. Grommel, too, wears second-hand felt boots, and his coat is only a thin, ragged army type. But he says that he has a warm, and probably lice-infested, Lands wool vest underneath which another soldier tried on in the kokos, and found to be too tight. On his head he wears a Russian fur cap, given to him by one of the assault gun crewmen. He therefore looks like a Russian, and some of our men are already calling him Ivan. With my camouflage outfit, I am definitely the best off, but nevertheless, I still freeze horribly here in this bloody country, where Napoleon and his entire army perished. Everything I have read about this episode in the history books I am now experiencing for myself. I shudder when I think about being wounded here in this snowy wasteland and lying helplessly until my body slowly turns into a lump of ice. Like those 300,000 men in Stalingrad will freeze, when the food runs out and the ammunition runs out, and there's nothing left but cold and death. Why don't the assault guns come? We wait, and then, too late. We hear the mortar shells rushing in. In spite of the fact that they hit the ground some distance away, splinters do zip through the air and pass close to our heads. It doesn't particularly upset us. We're used to much worse. We're used to everything now. Death, cold, hunger, fear. It all blends together into a gray numbness that makes you wonder if you're even alive anymore. The days blur together. December 16th, 17th, 18th. Each one the same as the last. Marching through snow, digging holes, freezing. Occasional firefights with Russians who appear out of the white void and then disappear again. More men die. More names I'll forget. We keep moving south, always south. Trying to link up with the main force. Trying to find somewhere we can defend. Trying to survive one more day. On December 19th, we finally reach a stable position. Real trenches. Real bunkers. Food. Not much, but more than we've had. They tell us that the relief attempt to Stalingrad has failed. Hoth's tanks got within 40 kilometers of the pocket before being driven back. 40 kilometers. So close. The men in Stalingrad could probably hear the artillery, could probably see the flares at night. Hope within reach and then snatched away. Now they're sealed in for good. 300,000 men. Doomed. And we're here, safe, relatively safe, while they wait to die. The guilt is crushing. We ran. We abandoned our positions. We saved ourselves while they're trapped. That night I try to sleep, but can't. I keep thinking about Wilka, about that moment when the tank track went over him, about his scream, cut short, about how there was nothing left of him but a red smear in the snow. I think about Meinhard and Swina, buried alive in their bunker, about Kurat and his harmonica, about all the men I've watched die over the past 2 months, and I think about the 300,000 men in Stalingrad, and I wonder how many of them I knew, how many friends from training, from other units, from other times, are sealed in that pocket right now, counting down the days until they freeze or starve. Warius sits beside me in the bunker. He's not sleeping either. You think any of them will make it out? He asks. The ones in Stalingrad? I don't answer. What is there to say? We both know the answer. They won't make it out. They'll fight until the ammunition runs out. Then they'll freeze until they can't fight anymore. And then they'll surrender if they're lucky, or die if they're not. And the ones who surrender will be marched to camps in Siberia, where most of them will die anyway. 300,000 men. And we ran. We're alive because we ran. Wilka didn't deserve that, Warius says quietly. Getting crushed by a tank. He should have, I don't know, gone out fighting, at least. Not just crushed like a bug. Nobody deserves any of this, I say. And that's the truth. None of us deserve this. Not the men who died. Not the men in Stalingrad. Not the Russians we're fighting. Not any of us. We're all just caught up in something bigger than ourselves. Something we can't control. Something that chews us up and spits us out, and doesn't care about our lives, or our dreams, or our families waiting at home. Warius pulls out a crumpled pack of cigarettes. Somehow he managed to keep them dry through everything. He offers me one, and I take it. We sit there in the dim bunker, smoke curling up toward the ceiling, not talking, just existing, just being alive for another moment. You know what gets me? Warius says finally. It's the numbers. 300,000. I can't even picture that many people. Can't imagine that many men all in one place, all trapped, all waiting to die. Don't think about it, I say. Can't help it. That's somebody's son. 300,000 somebody's sons. 300,000 mothers who are going to get telegrams. 300,000 families who'll never be whole again. He's right. And it's worse than that, because those 300,000 men aren't just numbers. They're individuals. Each one with a name, a story, a life left behind, dreams that will never be realized, promises that will never be kept. Some of them are men I knew. Must be. The training camp had hundreds of us. We all got split up, sent to different units, different sectors, but some of those men I trained with, ate with, laughed with, they're in Stalingrad now, sealed in, counting down the days. And what about the men I didn't know? The clerks and the mechanics, and the cooks, the officers and the medics, and the signalmen, all the support personnel that keep an army functioning. They're trapped too, and they'll die too, not in glorious battle, but from cold and starvation and disease. My brother might be in there, Grummel says suddenly. We both turned to look at him. He was with 6th Army. Last letter I got was October. Said they were pushing into the city, making good progress. Thought they'd have it wrapped up by Christmas. Fuck, I didn't know Grommel had a brother in Stalingrad. He's never mentioned it before. But why would he? What is there to say? Maybe he got out, I offer, knowing it's a lie. Maybe he was reassigned, or wounded, evacuated before they sealed the pocket. Maybe, Grommel says, but we all hear the doubt in his voice. The certainty. His brother is in there, and his brother is going to die, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. I'm sorry, Warius says. Yeah, Grommel replies. Me too. We fall silent again. What else can we say? Sorry doesn't fix anything. Doesn't save Grommel's brother. Doesn't change the fact that 300,000 men are doomed. Doesn't bring back Wilka, or Meinhard, or Swina, or Kurat, or any of the others. The history books will call this a great battle. Stalingrad. The turning point. The moment Germany's advance was stopped. They'll analyze the strategy and the tactics and the decisions. They'll debate what went wrong and who was to blame. But they won't talk about Grommel's brother, or Wilka being crushed by a tank, or 3 terrified young men huddled in a snowhole, wondering if they'll see tomorrow. The history books never do. December 13th, 1942. The day 50 tanks came at us, and we ran across the frozen dawn, while 300,000 men were sealed in Stalingrad. The day Wilka died under a tank tread. The day Meinhard and Swina were buried alive. The day we became survivors instead of soldiers. The day Grommel learned his brother was trapped in hell, and there was nothing he could do but wait for the telegram that would make it official. I will never forget that day. None of us will. It's burned into us, a scar that will never heal. The day we learned that survival isn't glorious. It's just another form of guilt. We ran across the frozen dawn, and we lived. And in Stalingrad, 300,000 men waited to die, including, maybe, Grommel's brother. That's the truth. That's what war is. Not heroism, not glory. Just survival, and the crushing weight of knowing you lived while others didn't. I close my eyes and try to sleep. Tomorrow we'll fight again, or run again, or die. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. Except getting through one more day, one more hour, one more minute. That's all there is now. Survival, and guilt, and the memory of 50 tanks coming at us across the snow while the world ended, and we ran, and in Stalingrad, 300,000 men wait, and among them, maybe a young soldier with Grommel's face, thinking about his little brother, wondering if we made it out, hoping we survived. We did, brother. We made it out. We ran across the frozen dawn and we lived. But you didn't. You're still there, still waiting, still trapped, and there's nothing we can do, nothing anyone can do, except remember, except carry the guilt, except promise that if we survive this war, we'll tell the truth about what happened, about who you were, about what it cost. We ran across the frozen dawn, and 300,000 men were sealed in Stalingrad, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life, however long or short that may be, because that's what survivors do. We remember. We bear witness. We carry the dead with us. That's our burden. That's our punishment. That's our purpose, to live. And to remember, and to never let the world forget what happened here, in the frozen hell of the Eastern Front, in December 1942, when 300,000 men were condemned to death, and we were the ones who got away.